In 1962, a car company that was almost completely dead built the fastest production car in all of America. It broke 29 speed records. The man who created James Bond ordered one in black, and the whole thing was designed in just 40 days by 4 people working out of a rented house in the desert. And then, somehow, it destroyed the very company that made it. This is the story of the Studebaker Avanti. Studebaker started way back in 1852, and back then they were not making cars at all. They were making horse-drawn wagons. They supplied the U.S. Army during the Civil War and built the wagons that carried whole families across the American frontier. By the early 1900s, Studebaker had become the biggest wagon maker in the entire world. When cars came along, they moved into that business too, and for decades they were a solid and trusted name in the American car industry. They were not the biggest company, and they were not the flashiest, but people respected them and trusted them with their money. Then, after World War II, everything changed. The big 3 car companies, General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler, had grown so large that smaller companies simply could not keep up with them anymore. By the late 1950s, Studebaker had lost money in 8 out of 9 years, and their share of the market had fallen below 2%. The company was running out of time. In 1961, the board brought in a new president named Sherwood Egbert, a former U.S. Marine who had earned a war medal and spent his career building companies from nothing. The board gave him one clear instruction, which was to quietly move Studebaker out of the car business and into something more profitable. Egbert showed up in South Bend and did the complete opposite. He personally visited over 1,300 Studebaker dealerships across the country. He painted tired old buildings himself. And at his very first press conference, he said 6 words that made the board very nervous. Those words were, "We are in this business to stay." Egbert knew Studebaker could never beat General Motors by doing the same thing. But he believed that one truly great car, something bold and unlike anything else on the road, could change the whole story overnight. He sketched his idea on the back of an envelope during a flight and then reached out to the one man in the world who might actually be able to pull it off. That man was Raymond Loewy, one of the most celebrated designers in American history. He had designed the Shell Oil logo, the Greyhound bus, Coca-Cola vending machines, and even the inside of Air Force One for President Kennedy. His whole philosophy came down to one simple idea, which was to push design forward, but never so far that regular people cannot follow you there. When Egbert showed him the rough sketches, Loewy agreed immediately. He rented a small house out in the California desert near Palm Springs, brought in 3 designers, and they worked 16 hours a day, 7 days a week until the job was done. In just 5 weeks, they had a finished model sitting in front of Egbert. He looked it over, made a few small changes in about 20 minutes, and said, "Let us go." 5 weeks from a blank page to a car that was approved for production. Most large car companies needed 2 to 3 years to do exactly the same thing. They named it the Avanti, which is the Italian word for forward, and it looked like absolutely nothing America had ever seen before. There was no front grille, just a clean air opening under a thin bumper. The body had a narrow curved waist, and the roof had a built-in roll bar running through it. The interior looked like the cockpit of an aircraft with overhead switches and aircraft-style dials. It was the first American car with 4 seats to be built from fiberglass, and it came with disc brakes at a time when almost no American car had them. The fiberglass body was not just about looks either. Steel body tooling would have cost up to $20 million and taken well over a year to complete. Fiberglass cost under $1 million and was done in 10 months, which for a company that was nearly out of money made all the difference in the world. The top engine option came with a supercharger pushing close to 300 horsepower and could go from 0 to 60 miles per hour in 7.3 seconds. In 1962, that was seriously fast. In August 1962, the Avanti went to the Bonneville Salt Flats in Utah. In 12 hours, it broke 29 American speed records. Top speed, nearly 170 miles per hour. The previous record in that class, held by a Dodge, was beaten by more than 50 miles per hour. The car ran on regular pump gas anyone could buy at a filling station. The man running the speed runs even let passengers ride along above 170 miles per hour and released the steering wheel to prove how stable the car was. That is either very brave or completely insane. The fastest production car in America, built by a company that was nearly bankrupt. But while the records were being broken, the factory could not get cars out the door. The company making the fiberglass bodies kept getting it wrong. The curved shapes warped during production. Doors did not fit. Panels came out uneven. Egbert had planned to sell 20,000 Avantis in the first year. They built 1,200. Customers who put down deposits waited for months and gave up. The press started writing about Studebaker's money problems. Nobody wants to buy a car from a company that might close next week. Orders dried up fast. Then things got worse. Egbert was diagnosed with stomach cancer. He kept working through treatment for as long as he could. But the board pushed him out in late 1963. 26 days later, the South Bend factory closed. 5 days before Christmas, workers who had spent their whole lives building Studebakers lost their jobs overnight. The last Studebaker ever built rolled out in March 1966. 114 years of making vehicles. Gone. But the Avanti refused to die. 2 local Studebaker dealers bought the name and the tooling and kept building the car by hand using Chevrolet engines. Someone somewhere was still building some version of the Avanti all the way through 2006. 44 years after the original launched. No other stopped car in history has been kept alive that long by that many true believers. Today, an original Avanti sits in the Smithsonian in Washington. Not a Cadillac, not a Corvette. The fiberglass car from the company that barely survived long enough to build 5,000 of them. The disc brakes Studebaker put on the Avanti became standard across the whole American car industry within a decade. The padded dashboard and built-in roll bar both showed up in cars everywhere years later. And the grille-free front end that people called strange in 1962 is exactly what most electric cars look like today. Sometimes the greatest things come from the most desperate places. Drop a comment if you knew about this car before today, and subscribe if you want more stories like this every day.